Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Business and Banking Dialogue Show. Your one show which gives you the best of speakers who are proven industry experts. Today, we have a panel discussion on a very, very important sector of a financial industry, the cooperative banks. And today, we have a panel discussion with four very well-known personalities who have years of experience in the cooperative sector, and they are the very best in the industry. I am KK, your moderator for today's show, which is today is the 146th show, a show which we started last year during the pandemic, has continued for so long. And a big thanks to all of you who are live across the EPS channels and social media channels of YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Ladies and gentlemen, cooperative banks in India form the backbone for delivery of credit to rural areas. Their structure is unique. They belong to their members. So the customers are also owners. Most of them, because they have to have a shareholder. Cooperatives are primarily set up to provide easy and cheaper access to credit in rural areas. However, with some major cooperatives collapsing, notably, in Maharashtra, we had the PMC, and RBI putting over 40 banks under watch list in 2020, RBI taking control of UCBs, the cooperative banks have come under the scanner. How do we strengthen this important sector is a topic of discussion today. And we have with us four very eminent panelists. So let me introduce you to one by one. Ladies and gentlemen, we are privileged to have Dr. Mukund Abhyankar, ex-chairman of Cosmos Bank. You will see his profile in a short while. There you go. Under his leadership, Cosmos Bank has achieved outstanding results and is a leader in the cooperative sector. He is a very tall figure in the cooperative banking sector. He has also been a member of several committees, notably the Malagam Committee, to frame rules for licensing of UCBs, or what are they called as urban cooperative banks. He has also represented the UCBs in several forums. You have his profile right in front of you. Give you a minute or two to watch, see. The second panelist is, I will introduce her. She is not there right now, but she will join in a short time. We're privileged to have Ms. Smita Sandhane, Managing Director of Saraswat Cooperative Bank. Saraswat Cooperative Bank is a household name, right? At least in the western part of India. She has with her 35 years of illustrious career in the bank. She has gone through various departments in the bank, and she's risen right to the top. Proves a point that if you do really well, there is no limit where you can reach. So we will wait for Smita to come in. She has some meeting, but she said she's promised to join us as soon as possible. The third member of today's panel is Colonel Vinod Shah. He is the GM of Gujarat State Cooperative Bank, GSCB. He was with the telecom industry for 25 years before joining the bank. He has worked with various telecom companies and has also worked extensively in Nigeria. You can see his profile right in front of you. He's got a good career, worked with various companies in the telecom industry. With the army background, he is focused on IT and cyber security. Let me introduce you to the fourth panelist, Mr. Vikrant Ponkshe. Mr. Vikrant Ponkshe is the CMD of Being Catalyst. He was earlier as the MD of Cosmos Bank. He has also worked with Abu Dhabi and in Abu Dhabi Finance, PJSC. He also worked with Barclays Bank. So his career is right in front of you. Okay. So let's get going with our discussion. Dr. Abhyankar,
Yeah.
how has the cooperative banking landscape changed in the last decade with respect to competition, customer relevance, technology advancements, and evolving economic scenario?
Yeah. Actually, I am in the cooperative field, especially with the cooperative banking sector for the last 42 years. I was on RBI many committees, and the number of cooperative banks before 2000, year 2000, was more than 2000. 2100 was the number of urban cooperative banks at that time. But thereafter, due to lack of technology, due to lack of technical knowledge, due to non-professional people coming on the board of directors of smaller cooperative banks, the RBI has moved ahead by removing licenses or merging urban cooperative banks. And today, it is 82 are urban cooperative banks and 58 are multi-state cooperative banks. So the total number itself indicates that actually from 2,100, the number today is 1,540, total number of cooperative banks. And this is the main reason for that, a lack of technical people on the board of directors, actually relatives and all those. And secondly, actually, is the lack of technology. Use of technology is still lacking in urban cooperative banks because many cooperative banks are not still having the IT technology adopted by them. So this is the main reason actually why cooperative sector is slightly deteriorating. And personally, I will say only two sentences more. Personally, after now, already it is mentioned by Sandhane that there are 277 UCBs reporting losses, have weak financial status, and 105 UCBs unable to meet minimum regulatory capital requirement that is mentioned by Mr. Sandhane. But in addition to that, 47 urban cooperative banks are having negative net worth, and 328 have more than 15% gross NPA. RBI will put restrictions on if your gross NPA more than 10%. So they have to improve either gross NPA, they have to adopt higher technology in their day-to-day working. So this I will like to say.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good beginning. So yeah, according to you, the one of the issue is with the adopting of technology, and technology is is changing by the day. It's the technology that was there, let's say 4 years ago when everybody was into core banking. It's no more anything to be. You've got to be something else. The core banking is fast, so you've got to be in open banking. So perhaps the catching up of technology is also not that easy with the cooperative banks. What do you say, sir?
I will say actually, even the National Bank were not having the technology adoption before year 2010. Actually, and Cosmos Bank has had an agreement with the Infosys. Infosys, Narayan Murthy was in charge, and we adopted agreement with Infosys, and we had the technology pinnacle in our bank in year 2002. So from that year, but actually the main problem for smaller banks actually is that they cannot afford the technology. That's the main thing actually, and therefore affording technology. Many banks in India are having branches less than 10 or 15 branches. So therefore they are unable to adopt technology, and therefore technology is very, very important nowadays. And therefore I feel that technology and technical persons on the board of directors, these two are very important factors for urban cooperative bank. If they want to survive, I am using the word survive. And growth is next, but survival is also very important. So with the now RBI taking control of all cooperative banks after the amendment of Banking Regulation Act last year, I am afraid that within next 1 year, at least 100 urban cooperative banks either will be vanished or they will be merging compulsorily with the bigger cooperative bank. That is my guess actually.
Okay, let's hear from Colonel because Colonel Vinod Shah has been with IT and cyber security, information technology. I've known him for so many. So your thoughts on IT adoption in the cooperative bank?
Firstly, let me thank you for giving me the opportunity. And as Dr. Mukund has said, technology is a must, but the major factor in adoption of technology is there are two factors. One is the skill set which is required by the cooperative banks, which is not available because they cannot afford it. So it's a two things. One is the affordability. Another is unless until I give sufficient money, I will not be able to attract the talent within the cooperative banks. So now the first part, adoption of technology, of course, you said that CBS is past now. CBS was just the base, or rather just the platform on which we had to go beyond CBS. Now, one of the models that we have tried in Gujarat very successfully, and I am proud to say this is unique in the whole country. We at State Cooperative Bank, because it's a State Cooperative Bank there in Gujarat, is a very strong bank. It's not so in all other states, but here, yes, it's one of the very strong banks. We have made a technology umbrella. Now, what do I mean by technology umbrella? Technology umbrella, we have established the hardware, the software, the infrastructure facilities at GSC Bank. And we are providing today 150 plus banks various services like RTGS, NEFT, CTS, then ATM, and DBT services. So wherever it is possible and wherever RBI has permitted us to have sub-membership, we have done that. And we are not charging any penny to these cooperative banks. And this does not include only district cooperative banks. This also includes the urban cooperative banks of the state. As a matter of fact, just about 2 years back, we wrote to RBI saying that other state, we should be allowed to give sub-membership to other states also, because there were requests coming from other states too. Now, after 2 years, RBI has now given a reply just about 15 days back, and they are saying that, okay, how will you do it, etc., etc. So I have just replied to them saying what is our plan of doing it, because I think, still are not very clear. What they have, the question which they have asked me after 2 years is that GSC Bank, that is the Gujarat State Cooperative Bank, does not have any branch in Rajasthan, because we have asked that we can ask if we can have some membership of the banks in Rajasthan and MP and surrounding states. So they have said that you don't have a branch, number one, and secondly, it is not in your operational area. So we have written to them that we don't need a branch for making them sub-members. So such things. So I think one of the solutions is making a technology umbrella of the kind that we have made in Gujarat. Now that's one thing. Second part is the skill set and the capacity part. See, that is not a process which can happen overnight. And there is no doubt about it that if we want to attract talent, we will have to have sufficient money to offer. That is something which will have to be over a period of time. And I don't see, I see what Mr. Mukund has just now said, that yes, there would be certain mergers happening, there would be certain smaller banks, because I don't see that if I just talk about urban cooperative bank, there are 60% of the banks which are just single bank branch. They cannot survive in this kind of environment. There is no other way out. That's what I talk about when I talk about adoption of technology.
Thank you. So let's welcome Ms. Sandhane. Welcome, ma'am, to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have.
And please pardon me for my delay because I was occupied in some other meeting.
Yes, I understand. This is understandable, sir. It's a working day, and thank you very much for coming. So we have already introduced all the panelists, including you. So my question to you, ma'am, is no question, none of our shows go without asking a question on the COVID-19. So the COVID, has played a havoc and has paralyzed the global economy, completely, including India, of course. So according to estimate, there are, according to projections, there are 277 UCBs banks are reporting losses, and 105 have been unable to meet minimum regulatory capital requirements. What is your advice to, some numbers may go up and down. So what's your advice to cooperative bank to stay afloat and recover from this pandemic?
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Very much, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Right, sir. The COVID-19 pandemic and the resultant the great lockdown actually has really hit the economy, even shutdown, resulting into job losses. Supply chain disruption was there, and contraction of GDP on a global level. So the depth and speed of decline in the economic activity has led to the worst kind of an economic downturn. I think the last maybe the Great Depression or something in the 1929 or so, and thereafter, this is the first time we are passing through such a bad recessionary time. So the credit growth is at its worst level today. And on other side, the delinquencies or probable NPAs, they are on the rise or they will be higher in the coming future.
Yes.
So all these factors have affected entire banking industry, but especially cooperative bank because they are more vulnerable because of their size of business or their size capital also. So it is so due to our vulnerability actually or cooperative bank to service and the expense so is this being by economy will be there in the economy.
We're having audio issues, right?
So under these circumstances, I feel that these to bring out the best in
I think ma'am has audio issue, right? Network issue is on.
Hello, I'm audible.
Yeah, now you're audible. Yeah, I think you had a network issue.
Sorry. So whatever. Under these circumstances, I feel that overcoming challenges in times of these adversities help us to bring out the best in processes and people by balancing optimism with caution and create a robust path ahead. So cooperative banks can stay afloat by exploring new ideas, opportunities for paving the way for future growth, like expanding our reach to microfinance lending. Though we are small means bank, we are actually not in microfinance segment. Small finance banks, and they are actually have captured this microfinance. So we can focus on the rural and semi-urban regions, focusing on the low commercial loans, and within the bank also we can do automation of the bank services. And more than that, what the cooperative banks are known for its service. So supporting all the individuals, customers through personalized, flexible products and services can boost confidence and improve the customer loyalty. Because at this juncture also, the customer loyalty is very, very important. And to retain the customer will have from my services. But with level to interest cooperative is successful only if it stays relevant to all its stakeholders in all kinds of use and shades of economic journey. So such successful journey is the result of continuously you have to revisit, re-engineer. You have to revisit, re-engineering and reforming our products and services, improving efficiency in delivery and its operations, even the fair pricing of all our products and services, and most importantly, control operational costs, increasing efficiency of resources. I would like to share my example because the business activity was very, very low. So we went through all our processes, operations, and we took a call for reducing our operational costs, and thereby we followed various methods like renegotiating rent of all our lease premises, surrendering high rent premises and relocating them. Or even there are some loss-making branches, branch-specific strategies, what that loss-making branch into a profit branch, renegotiating various AMCs and various, because usually banks have a number, so AMCs contract renegotiated. So these are various major, whereby you can something is down to increase unless the push economy or income will not go unless there is a so there is a limit. Exercise on your expenses. That is the prudent way of backing or
Okay.
other major and control cost of stock fund is a major thing because
Ma'am, I think we have an
there is
issue
no
with your audio. We're having issue, I think, with the audio of. Ma'am, yeah, we
is
have
there
issue
any
with
issue?
your. Yeah, your audio is not coming through. What I will do is, if you can,
Okay.
you can just reboot
I
your
join
audio.
from
Yeah.
See, I'm
Meanwhile,
on iPad.
yeah.
I will join from.
Yes, that'll be nice. That'll be nice.
My voice
So
is
let
not
me.
clear. My voice is
Not clear, and it freezes. Okay, so let me continue while ma'am comes across. Mr. Ponkshe, cooperative banks play an important role in rural development. Of that, there is absolutely no difference of opinion. And that is, of course, very key to the economic growth because India lives in the rural areas, as I say. Tell us your views on some of the new initiatives that cooperative banks need to undertake for aggressive rural development.
Yeah, Mr. KK, if you may allow, if I can revisit the earlier questions, and I have a different perspective on that.
Sure.
So before answering this,
sure.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I think coming to the first question that you had asked, Dr. Abhyankar, of what has changed, what has changed in the competition, I would like to make a few more relevance. What has changed? He's already mentioned on the numbers and the health of the UCB sector. But what has changed phenomenally is the entire banking space. And it is not just the competition with the public sector or the private sector banks, but cooperative banks are now facing competition even from small finance banks and the micro lending institutions. So the overall change in the overall banking scenario, the overall banking landscape has changed. And needless to add that there are non-banking institutions which are entering into banking. Today, you see even HDFC Bank or ICICI Bank is worried about the Google Pays and the Paytms of the world. And when we are talking about the change scenario, these are all the factors that contribute to the overall, I would say, competition to the urban banking sector. So it is not just the survival, but it's also facing the competition, that is the fierce, unforeseen competition that is there.
Correct. And what was assumed to be an area of the banks has also been taken by non-banking sectors.
Absolutely. Right? And on the other side, the regulator does not allow bankers to do non-banking activities. Like, for example, in Sri Lanka, you can have a supermarket and you can have a bank. Or in Europe, you can still have many other businesses under cooperatives, and yet you can have a bank. But in India, regulators don't allow us. So I cannot be Google, or I cannot be a technology company. I mean, we are talking to stalwarts. We have Dr. Abhyankar here, and we have Madam also here. Both of these banks have tried to float a subsidiary company to give the IT support to many other small banks. But then the regulators have almost forced them to close them down. Yeah, so you see, on one side, the regulator is allowing the fintech companies to come into banking, but the banks cannot move into the fintechs. And I'm sure Mr. Shah will also agree to this, that while the Gujarat model is also struggling, these banks have already made a point. So when Dr. Abhyankar was mentioning about signing up with Infosys and having the partnership and having the core banking back in 2002, he also made an attempt, and he's been modest enough not to speak about it, but he's also made an attempt to give this as a banking as a software on a SaaS model, because Cosmos eSolutions, their subsidiary, and I know because I was an insider there, we had a implementation agreement. We still have an implementation partnership with Infosys, and Cosmos eSolutions, or for that matter, Saraswat Infotech, they were ready to offer this as a software to other smaller cooperative banks. Unfortunately, the model has not been successful because there is lack of cooperativeness within the cooperatives. Yeah, so I do hope that the Gujarat model succeeds, but then yes, there have been instances where things have not moved in well as well. Now again, I have a perspective on what Madam said on the pandemic issue, and my personal view is I have been interacting various other banks now, and I think the time now for the cooperatives is to stick to basics. So yes, it's nice to try new things. It's nice to venture new terrains. But I think what is most important is stick to basics. Now, we need to understand this sector. And I'm a keen observer. I'm not expert in cooperatives. I have.
Yes, I agree. Because
I've just been in cooperative sector since 2012 or so. So I would say the latest infant in this sector. But when I observe many banks, I have come across a bank who has not paid dividend for last 20 years and still has a CRAR. And RBI has inspected them. It was a negative net worth that they had assessed. And now today the CRAR is around 14%. So there have been banks and there is a strong community focus, a strong customer focus, which in spite of all odds are still there to help these banks. So when we talk about the COVID scenario, if we are able to retain our customers and if we are able to integrate with them well, there are examples today where banks have done extremely well in spite of all the problems they have had. Now, the one such, I don't want to name, but just to give an example, Pune Janata Sahakari Bank is one example. Bombay Mercantile is another example. There are many such examples where in spite of not paying dividend, the employees have sacrificed salaries. They have not taken salary hikes. The shareholders have not taken dividend for almost 15 to 20 years. And still the banks are afloat and they are doing good and they are on the verge of recovery and coming back to it. So it's a different ballgame altogether, I think. Now again, if you may allow, if it's not too long, I'll ask the question that you have asked today. I think what Cooperative Bank needs to do is they need to reinvent the fabric of cooperation. And why I'm saying so, I'll give an example. We all may have heard about Fidor Bank. Now, Fidor Bank in UK, it started in Germany and it's in UK and Germany. The model that Fidor Bank is now put in is they don't have any branches. It is a digital only bank and they don't have any sales team. The customers are their advocates and it's through customer advocacy that they have invented the business model. And the same is not difficult for cooperative banks. Cooperative banks have never ever been best in the, I would say, when it came to the loan on the interest on loans, they were never affordable. They were slightly a notch higher. People come to cooperative banks to keep their deposits because they pay a higher interest. And therefore, the cost of funds has not been traditionally great unless if you have a great CASA. And there are very few banks who have a great CASA. And in spite of that, there are banks who are profiting and who are actually doing very well. So I think what they need to do is they need to reconnect back to their customers, of course, through digitally, because physically it will be difficult. So the phygital is the mantra, the digital and the physical, a blend of both is the mantra. That is what is going to be there. And I think the most important aspect is rather than reinventing on the other aspects, if they concentrate on the governance, risk and compliance, the GRC, if they are able to implement GRC, technology is available today, it is affordable today, and you have plug and play models across. I mean, you talk about loan originations, you talk about CRM, or you talk about a core banking solution. Everything is available on a SaaS model, and any smallest cooperative bank can come on a SaaS platform and they'll be able to implement that. But what is really important is building in their DNA, the governance, risk and compliance. Unfortunately, the problem with cooperative banks is unless the regulator takes the whip, they don't change. And one of the example I would like to give you is on the risk-based audit that RBI is trying to push in and force in. Out of the 1,600 cooperative banks we have, I can measure only on my fingertips of one hand who actually have a risk department in place. I know, for example, Cosmos has a risk department because they hired me to set it up. I know Saraswat has a risk department. I know SVC has a risk department. Abhyuday. So all in all, you don't have more than 5 or 7 banks who have a risk department in place. And RBI has put on a whip that by March 2022, you need to have a risk-based audit in place. So in my view, what is really important is going back to the basics, reinvent and re-understand your capabilities, connect with your customers digitally again, and have governance, risk, and compliance in place.
Okay, that's very nice, Mr. Ponkshe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Before I take the next round of question, I had a question for Colonel Shah. We talked about the financial inclusion, and what are the challenges that are hampering financial inclusion efforts of cooperative banks, and what should we do? Because financial inclusion has been a big government push to bring in inclusiveness from the rural side. What are your thoughts there, Colonel?
Yeah, see, first and foremost, even if I talk about the financial inclusion, in the beginning when this Janadhan Yojana came, the first was that the cooperative banks were not supposed to be a part of the Janadhan Bank. It really took a lot of effort by the cooperative banks and the higher-ups that cooperative banks are the grassroots level people who should be included. Later on, they said, okay, fine. But it took a lot of time before the cooperative banks were introduced. But now, notwithstanding that, now coming out to the financial inclusion, see, again, the first and foremost is most of the employees of the cooperative banks, they are aged. So there is a mindset change that is required. It takes little time before they really adopt technology, because financial inclusion and technology goes together.
Yeah,
that's number one. So slowly what I find, and I've seen in last, because I haven't been associated with cooperatives for very long, but at least this is my 8th year, I am finding that now youngsters are slowly coming in, the cooperative banks also. And with that, there is a change of mindset on the employee side. Once the mindset changes on the employee side, the customers also, then they can educate the customers, and that's what is happening. Now, in the Gujarat, again, because specifically I'll talk about Gujarat. We have all the district cooperative banks have been given various big vans, and we have converted these vans into not just technology vans. What we have, another thing is the street plays. Each district cooperative bank, there are 18 district cooperative, each district cooperative bank, they have started street plays going around various villages and at PAX level and all that, And each of these, in the last 2 years, they have done at least 500 street plays in each of their areas of operations. That is one thing good, and it has really resulted into a very positive feedback coming from the people, because now they have started using even mobile banking. That is another good thing which is happening. So from that financial inclusion part or financial awareness part, because first and for financial inclusion, it's important the financial awareness. That awareness is coming up of digital use, etc., etc. And now that is what is happening. Another major and good part which has happened is the use of micro ATMs. Now the micro ATMs are being really widely used in the villages and especially the dairies. I will give you a specific example of Sabarkantha District Cooperative Bank, Banaskantha, and Ahmedabad District Cooperative Bank. Within 1 year, they have just put around 200 plus micro ATMs in their area and in the dairies. With that, just because this 200 plus micro ATMs, their CASA has gone up by almost 250 crores. Just because, and when we have analyzed it, the whole result is because of this use of micro ATMs in the dairies, because there are good dairies in these areas, Sabarkantha, Banaskantha, Ahmedabad, and now because of this CASA has improved. Now they are very happy. Earlier, particularly at the time of demonetization, because these dairies, they require, or the total, I'm talking about Gujarat, they required about 450 crores on a daily basis of cash. That has now come down. The balance remains in their accounts. So that is one area which is really giving very positive things. So that is on the financial inclusion part. Of course, apart from that, every day the vans are going in their villages and all that. So that is these are the initiatives which are happening in Gujarat, and I'm sure similar things must be done in other states also.
Excellent initiative. I think that's great to look at the financial inclusion. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've done with one round of discussion with the panelists. I'm sure you all have, ladies and gentlemen, have questions to ask. So you may put in your question in the Q&A box, and we will try to get it across to the panelists. Should you want to ask a question directly on the topic, you can ask, and we will help you to come through. So before that, I think the audience are already aware. Immediately, there is one question that's coming up. So let me ask the audience, because we live for the audience. So Harish Prabhu, experienced banker, wants to ask a question. Harish, keep it short and go ahead and ask the question.
Sure. Yeah, quickly. Hello, esteemed panel. This is Harish Prabhu. I just wanted to ask you a question pertaining to the landscape having changed for cooperative banks, primarily both on the external front as well as the internal front. Internal, which Mr. Ponkshe said about GRC, right? Tightening RBI regulation, and the external being competition from the newer banks and etc., including NBFCs, right? Now, obviously, one thing which has not been discussed is capital adequacy, and I'm not just talking about regulatory capital adequacy, but capital adequate enough to survive, thrive, and grow. Now, the structure of the cooperative bank is that you are restricted in terms of capital. How does one solve this going forward in the light of all these challenges? Do you have any ideas? Thanks.
Any of the panelists would like to take that question? Ma'am, would you like to take that question?
Yeah, sure. Mr. Prabhu, you have actually asked the right question. This has been a challenge for us for all these years. We have been worried that right now maybe our capital is adequate enough, but then going ahead with the rise in the business, how we are going to cope up with this? Of course, RBI has on last June 20, there was some amendment in the Banking Act, and in that they have suggested certain things like presently we have been issuing our shares at face value. So though our book value may be very high, but then we are not able to capitalize that book value, and we have to issue the share at at face value, and that too there is a cap on the issuing of the capital shares also, because there is a share linkage. So there is this expert committee has been appointed, and they are working for the guidelines on those issuing of the share capital. So we are expecting that some guidelines will come from this working group under the head of Mr. Vishwanathan. So once that guidelines come, then I think the picture will be pretty clear. So presently, yes, we are in a dark that how to go ahead, because there are other avenues also available like LTSD, PNCPS, but there are number of negative notions to all these other avenues. So but then again, it will be discounted every year, and then the actual, the cost is also higher. If you compare to that discounting factor, the real cost to the bank is on a higher side. So let's wait for these guidelines to come, then the picture will be clear.
Okay. Thank you. I think Vikrant, you want to rejoin that?
Yes, in addition to what Madam has said, and when we are talking about Mr. Vishwanathan and the committee that is being constituted, I think what we also need to understand is that there are certain tools which have been at our disposal, and Mr. Vishwanathan, while he was still in service, had given a differential shareholding norms also for UCBs. So in addition to the LTDs and the preferential shares that were there. But I think we also need to think out of box, and we also need to start looking at options that is it possible to list the cooperatives on stock exchanges. And I do appreciate that there is a one member, one vote limitation to it. But what that would probably do is we still would be, as Madam was mentioning, there we will be able to unleash the potential capital that is locked up between the book value and the face value of the share. If the shares are traded, again, if you have a great governance in place, we all know that there are some listing requirements that need to be fulfilled. And if you are able to do that, that again could be another great source which we could look at. So I think a slightly out of box thinking is also required in this scenario.
Okay, yeah, good, very good. This. So we'll wait for the
Thank you.
committee. Thanks, Harish. Thanks, an excellent question. Let's look at the the latest directive from RBI bringing in some of the UCBs, or at least the UCBs under their control. The Dr. Abhyankar, the cooperative banking sector has been brought under a stricter scrutiny after a string of collapse. Some of these are very popular: PMC Bank collapse, the Karad Janta Sahkari, the CKP, Mapusa, so many of them. What are your views? What are your views on the 106 directives issued by RBI in 2020 to restore public trust in cooperative banking and improve the sectoral health? The public trust has been eroded with all these failures. What are your thoughts on this?
I am personally of the opinion that the public trust is not yet eroded, because still we are very friendly with our customers, and customers are very friendly. The service, quality of service which we are getting in the nationalized bank and the quality of service which we are getting in the private bank is far inferior than the service getting in the cooperative bank. And the cooperative bank, they know the customer, they know the customer family, they know the development in the customer family. They just ask you, have your son come back from America? Have your daughter got married? Has she passed these sorts of questions are never asked in government bank or even private sector bank. So relationship the customer and customer faith is still there actually. But personally, I will open a different topic for that. RBI, he is not inclined to subsidize the urban cooperative bank, because today or day after today, yesterday's newspaper, Nirmala Sitharaman said they are going to finance a capital to our public sector cooperative bank. But RBI or government never thought of financing the urban cooperative bank, especially capital. And again, I will give one example. Sorry, this is a slightly different example. The Lakshmi Vilas Bank. Our known of the Lakshmi Vilas Bank, they were having 565 branches or 585 branches in all over India. Lakshmi Vilas Bank was given moratorium of 1 month actually and within 4 days, the central cabinet met. They had decided that it should be merged with the Singapore Bank, and it merged with the Singapore Bank. So the government of India and the Reserve Bank of India are still not inclined to give capital subsidy or capital support to urban cooperative bank. In fact, they are finding fault. Of course, we are in a way responsible for that, and even National Bank. All written off things of the National Bank, if you see the figure, they are much, much more than the urban cooperative bank total together. So therefore, government and Reserve Bank of India should slightly look to this urban cooperative bank, and they should support the urban cooperative. That is my personal view. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So this is the hot topic, because the UCBs have been brought under the RBI. So, Madam, you have any thoughts on this?
I agree with what Dr. Abhyankar has said actually. We always say that UCBs have always been treated like.
Okay, I think we lost her again. Meanwhile, Vikrant, Mr. Ponkshe, you would have a word on that, on the bringing the UCBs under RBI?
Yeah, I think, I don't see fundamentally things have changed, I would say, because there have been times that RBI has been pushing, and we have always been talking about the dual control with the registrar and the RBI being there. But we all know that there have been NAFCUBs formed, and there have been standing advisory committees where RBI has been regulating and has been having continuous dialogue with the registrars also. So what has fundamentally changed, I think, is that now RBI possibly would be able to take, and the whip has become more stronger, they would be able to initiate action against a particular director, or elsewhile they had to take action against the entire board. So rather than, there would be a panic scenario if a board was superseded. But instead, possibly now what RBI will be able to do is, they would be able to take action against the erring director or the chairman or those individuals rather than the entire board. So I think that would also go a long way. There would not be a knee-jerk reaction that possibly that would happen. Now, if you look at the way RBI, I think why they wanted this control, as Dr. Abhyankar has given the example of Lakshmi Vilas, I would also like to quote about Yes Bank. So the moment they find that there has been some issues with a particular bank, they could jump into it proactively and they have been able to resolve it. And that was the sort of control that they want in case of UCBs also, so that they need not have to wait for taking action against the erring people out there. And that is, I think, one positive step ahead to ensure that we bring in more of control and systemic risks are reduced to considerable extent. The other measures that RBI has put in, if you look at the things, it is all being pushed to make these banks the survival of the fittest. So if you want to really survive, you need to be ahead of the curve. I'll give you a small example. RBI has come out with a very clear circular on cybersecurity. Now, today, when we talk about digitization and we want all the fancy aspects to be offered to our customers, and on one side, we are going to be vulnerable. We see the system in India is going to be as strong as the weakest link is. And if UCBs remain weak link, and if they remain weak, then we cannot have them on the entire national grid being put at risk just because one particular bank is not adhering to certain aspects. So from that perspective, you see, they have tried to bring in cybersecurity. They have tried to bring in a CISO function out there. They have tried to push in that you need to have a chief risk officer function. You need to bring in, now they have put in a risk-based audit to come in. So all of these measures, if you see, they are sort of to mend and reprimand the cooperative banking sector. And so it's like the herd mentality. If the herd is going haywire, then you need to bring in those sticks and you need to bring them back on track. And I think that's exactly what regulator is trying to do. Even if you look at the scenario where they have tried to say that 75% of your loan have to be less than 25 lakhs, your priority sector lending has to be 75%. Your 25% of a loan cannot be more than 25 lakhs. So all these measures are being brought in to re-emphasize and reignite and tell the cooperative banks that you please maintain the fabric that you are meant for, rather than getting strayed away. So I think it's a very welcome thing. And as I said, in my personal experience also, cooperative banks don't change unless they have a whip from the regulator. That's unfortunate, but they don't take things proactively. And therefore, this is a very welcome step, I would say.
Okay, great. So now that we have ma'am back on the thing, ma'am, we talked about before you joined, we talked in detail, in length on digitization, technology, etc. From your point of view, do you see a threat from the new age fintech companies? Okay, we got again. So correct, ma'am, we can't hear you.
I guess, ma'am, you're on mute.
Yeah, ma'am, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. I think there is some problem with my. So anyway, this is the challenges with technology.
Yeah.
So I feel that.
Yeah.
So I feel digitalization is a double-edged sword. In reducing your transaction cost significantly, but on the other hand, it requires high investment in capital, and that also is okay. But then highly skilled manpower, I think, which may be an impediment for cooperative banks, because the required manpower, acquiring them, retaining them, and technology you can hire or you can pick it right on somebody else, because there are plug-in model. Technology is amply available in the industry today, and at not very high cost also. You can negotiate and you can bring down the cost. So availability of technology for cooperative bank is not a challenge. Only thing, identifying of a technology is a challenge, because number of vendors they approach to the cooperative bank, they do not have the knowledge, and then they acquire any kind of a technology. So that right expertise, choosing the right kind of a technology is a challenge for the cooperative bank. course, they can manage, as in the earlier Colonel Shah has mentioned about the technology is possible, but then even then you outsource things. See, as per the RBI, that ownership is on you. The onus is on the bank. Even if you have outsourced vendors, outsourced technology partner, but you are the one.
Okay, we have a challenge there on technology. Okay. Colonel, let's look at the
and this.
Yes. Yeah, ma'am, you're back. Okay. Colonel, the human resources will be a focus area if the cooperative banks have to make effective contribution to the expansion of economy. And we are talking of 5 trillion economy. How are cooperative banks addressing this sensitive area?
Okay. First and foremost, yes, very rightly brought out that if we really have to be upgraded on the technology front, we need to have that skill development. See, the good part, firstly, let me bring out. The good part is NABARD has got institutions like BIRD, and of course, IDRBT is also there. So these are some of the institutions, apart that Venkut Institute of the Pune. So these people are having very good courses, and we are sending people to that, and I'm sure the other banks are also doing that. So it's a slow method of bringing the capacity building part in the cooperative sector, and I think that's a very good thing that is happening. Apart from that, we have also suggested certain other measures that people should be encouraged to take up certain degrees, professional degrees, and once they get the degree or once they get the certificate, the required certificates, they can be compensated in an indirect way. So these are some of the schemes that we have suggested, and I'm sure it is under serious consideration at NABARD level, and things are happening on that front. I would like to also bring one point which Mr. Vikrant just now said, on the cybersecurity front. The cybersecurity framework which has been issued for not only urban cooperative banks, but also for the rural, that is the DCCBs, etc. On the face of it, the first thing which was issued was just a flat document which was issued. Then in the December 2019, they did it on a gradual scale. I was a part of that letter which was issued on that graded scale, because through Jyotirndra Mama, we took it up and said that, look, if everybody has to do all these things, it is impossible. Whatever you say, just by telling on a paper, it's not good, or by just issuing a fiat, banks will not be able to do this. So then a lot of thought was given, and this graded approach which came, level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. I was a part of that letter draft which RBI had issued. Now, in that also, if you see, the level 1 and level 2 are basics, and most of the banks, they will fall in level 1 and level 2. But the point here is that even that cannot be, from the affordability, it is not possible. I know that, because my interaction with various stronger DCCBs in Gujarat, also they are not able to afford it. So as a result of it, we had a serious talk with the chairman NABARD, and again the same concept which we did in a technology umbrella. We have sent out a proposal to NABARD saying that let us have a cyber security umbrella. I am also talking to Jyotirndra Mama on this front. He, in principle, we are all agreeing to it. The only thing here I said is that in technology umbrella, we were able to do absolutely free. Here, banks will have to put some amount of money per month, kind of a thing, depending on the size of the bank, etc. So we have worked out that model, and if that comes through, I think we will be able to at least achieve 70% of whatever the RBI cybersecurity framework wants us to do, Because today there are all fly-by-night operators who are saying we'll do VAPT we will do IT audit. And I've seen those reports of some of these banks, 2-page IT report and 1-page VAPT report, just for the compliance part, but which is actually not. And as was rightly brought out by Mr. Vikrant, the weakest link is today these cooperative banks, particularly of a single branch or a 2 branch or a 5 branch, and they cannot afford, they don't have the capacity, they don't have the skill set. All these things are actual facts. We cannot close eyes to it. So that's what I thought has to be there.
Okay. So let's take some questions that are coming to us. Mr. Pushpendra Khandelwal says, in the Gujarat and Maharashtra cooperative sector has always been very strong. Okay, but continuous frauds or news of frauds have kind of eroded the image of cooperative sector. He assumes that politicians or the chairman could be an issue. Politics could be an issue. Please, your views on this current issue and how the cooperative banks can revive or will revive the new norms which are likely to be imposed by the government to RBI. Doctor, do you want to take a go at that?
Actually, the cooperative bank should be purely financial institution and no interference by the politicians or no interference by the local strongmen should be there actually, which we are observing even today also. In smaller cooperative banks actually, the local politician people, their relatives and their supporters, they are on the board actually. So when you mentioned about my Malegaon committee membership, Malegaon committee recommended actually there should be board of management, because the main reason for that we should accept that actually the board of directors of many cooperative banks has no technical knowledge at all, and this is just the relation between the directors and all those. So that is the main thing actually. So therefore the technical knowledge should be the thing for the now. Every control has been given to RBI now. RBI has to approve the board of directors. RBI to approve the chief executive officer also. So therefore, actually, now the control is with RBI. So the board of management concept now, I think personally become out of date now. So RBI should not insist now on the board of management, because they can control the board of directors actually. So that I think actually that the main weakness of this thing. One more point I will like to say, I will take on 1 minute only. The dividend. The dividend actually, when I am keeping the money in the saving bank, actually I should get actually 3% or 4% or actually 2% interest on my money. When I am not getting the dividend, even 0% dividend for years together actually, why people should purchase the shares of the Urban Cooperative Bank? That is the main problem, because of the shareholders. But 1 or 2 years they suffer, because many cooperative banks are given more than 9%, 10%, even 12% dividend year after year. So therefore dividend should be at least equivalent to the saving bank rate of the Urban Cooperative Bank. That is my personal view actually. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Ponkshe, a question that has come is that the new RBI norms are good to have because they may bring in good governance. But unfortunately, there are 96,000 odd rural cooperatives that constitute about 65% of the total assets of cooperatives among the packs, So they are not under the purview. So is that a cause of concern?
Well, I don't think so. That would be a cause of concern, because they are under the NABARD. So if they are not under the RBI directly, they are under NABARD. So I don't think that is a cause of concern. And that issue that the UCBs had about dual control, probably it's a different model out there. So that wouldn't be more of an issue out there. I think it is more of a welcome. There was a move where people were saying that UCB should move under NABARD. And again, my personal view was that it should not be so, because the business model of the UCBs and the RRBs is completely different. So the RRBs, the rural cooperatives, have a different mandate, which they are to a great extent solving. And if you look at the pyramid structure that they have, that has been well doctrined, and NABARD is regulating them. So we are talking more about the urban cooperative banks, and I think we need to understand the distinction between these two clearly to set aside. And again, coming to the new regulations that have come in, as Dr. Abhyankar mentioned, that with the new regulations coming in, what is going to happen is RBI will be able to take action against one individual director or the chairman also. And therefore, probably the board of management to that extent becomes redundant. And the other, again, so coming back to the basics and the GRC, governance, risk and compliance, possibly is going to be the key to that. And if,
So
if time permits, I have a view on the HR and the technology part as well. But I just leave it to your judgment for the time part.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so on the technology front, I mean, unfortunately, we lost Madam, and she was making some very valid comments about what needs to be done to be relevant. So from that perspective, I personally feel that, see, in one of the webinar, Mr. Sathe of TJSB, the CEO, he was there, and he said, it's not the question of skill that is a problem, it's the question of will that is the problem out here with the cooperative banks. A very, very valid statement that he made. And I would like to give him the credit for, bringing it out on the forum. But really what is really important is we have almost all the technologies available. But as Madam was trying to put in, banks are vulnerable to which is the right choice for them. And I think in that spirit, if the cooperatives bring in a cooperative spirit among themselves, definitely that could be the key to it. I don't know, Colonel Shah will also be talking about the NEU that Gujarat is trying to bring in together, or the umbrella organization they're trying to put in. So these are the sector. I mean, I know for the fact Pune Cooperative Bank, Urban Cooperative Banks Association has sought a permission to be a trainer, and they have been struggling to get that license from the government. So if things are with Reserve Bank of India, probably they seem to be moving slightly faster than with the government. And so from that perspective, bringing that control, majority of the control under the Reserve Bank of India seems to be a pretty a good thing at this point in time for all the banks, a very good step. So again, umbrella organization for the security. I mean, I'll give you an example. For the cyber security part, necessity is the mother of invention. Now we have coined and we have brought in a virtual CISO concept, wherein if a bank cannot afford to have a CISO, they can have a virtual CISO, they can hire a virtual CISO and ensure that the compliance is done. So as Colonel Shah was saying, even for a level 1 bank, there are 56 controls that need to be in place. For a level 2 bank, 84 controls. For a level 4 bank, around 174 controls need to be in place just to comply with the security framework of Reserve Bank of India. So if with those aspects, there is a dearth of quality manpower in the cooperative banks, but there are solutions available. And in addition to these things, so if they want to have a technological roadmap, they need to understand that they will not only have to invest in technology, not only invest in training their employees to use the technology, but also look at the cybersecurity framework to ensure that it is sustainable. Now, I'll give you a very positive note on the employee part. Now, when you talk about the employees, and the employees are going to be the real change agents for cooperative banks, agreed. But today you have two different sets of employees. Now you have few banks who are actually training grounds for best employees in the banking sector. Today, if you look at the private sector banks, they are all working in silos. If a person is working in assets, he doesn't understand liabilities. If he's working in liabilities, he probably may not understand assets and may not understand the credit underwriting. Urban cooperative banks, fortunately, today are the training ground where a person is given an overall exposure, and he is we have stopped creating bankers in the private sector, but we still, fortunately, are creating bankers in the cooperative space. And therefore, if you see, the people who have worked at the grassroots in cooperative banks are in demand, and they get a very good pay hike with private sector banks. That is one reality. So on one end of the spectrum, you have some cooperative banks who actually are grooming and nurturing these people, which are actually, so if you talk about the top 10 banks, the major problem they have is about good employee retention. That is one problem they have. On the other hand, on the other end of the spectrum, you have people who don't understand anything and who don't know the basics. And therefore, for that matter, what I feel is, again, as a part of governance, risk and compliance, we need to have a strict performance management systems in cooperative banks, which unfortunately is lacking in almost all banks, including the top ones. So incentive-based pay structures, a proper performance in management. Even if a person is not doing well, we need to put him on a personal development plan. So even the basics of HR, the HRD, we talk about HR as more of the problem areas in HR, but we don't talk about the HRD part, the development part of it. And if you have a right kind of PMS in the cooperative banks, I think that is going to be the key, because remember, these are the people who have been able to take these banks through the thick and thin, through the competition. So, and one thing that attracted me to the cooperative sector, again, just to cut short, I was with Barclays and with Abu Dhabi Finance, where I received the International Stevie Award for Relationship Management. But still, I decided to come back to India, and I was keen to understand the cooperative model. And thanks to Dr. Abhyankar, he gave me the opportunity to look into it. I was fascinated. If these banks don't offer best of technology, if they don't give best of interests, if they don't give best of services, what is that element that is still attracting the customer, and they still have around 10% of the business banking that's still with them? And that was what led me to the cooperative sector. And I can confidently say the best thing about this sector is the people connect, and the employees through which this people connect happens is enormous. And they need to unleash the potential of it. That is going to be the key.
Perfect. I think that's very well said. So can I take a question on one? Mr. Piyush Desha asked this question: how can the branch network preserve the advantage of proximity while remaining profitable? Okay, let me rephrase the question. Basically, he's asking, can we continue to have this expansion of branch network and profitability coming this way? You all have anybody else has a? Yeah, Kurt, yeah, doctor?
Yeah, actually, I will say the branch network is not that important in the current scenario, actually, because nowadays business correspondent model is there. The technology is there. Actually, expanding the branches in rural areas actually is not that profitable, but you can have the business correspondent, a village where there is no branch, any bank is not having any branch in that village. The business correspondent can go with the iPad. In the iPad, there are signatures, there are photographs, and the business correspondent is allowed to carry the money with him also. So therefore, in withdrawal, the business correspondent can visit a particular day on that village actually. The people can put in the money in the bank, people can withdraw the money in the bank, and all security measures will be on the iPad actually, including signature, photograph, and all those things actually. So therefore, the branch expansion is not important under the current state. In the city, you can have branch expansion because different areas, there are a lot of customers are there. But in remote villages, actually, the number of customers is very limited, actually. So therefore, business correspondent model is very useful, and the business correspondent model with the use of technology is very, very important. That is my opinion.
Okay. So you are not in favor of a brick and mortar branch expansion.
Right.
It may not be profitable. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just a slight variant to what doctor said. What I would feel is, if you look at why is a branch required, and why do you need a physical brick and mortar branch? So if you look at it, the customer needs a tangibility. He wants a live person to talk to. That is the first requirement. The second thing would be that I want to go and have a feel, and especially today, what cooperative banks you see, a lot of walk-ins are senior citizens. So they are actually hungry to look at young people out there and somebody to talk to. So that's the emotional requirement that they have. And third, of course, is the physical things that cannot happen virtually, like your lockers. Yeah. So my take to this is to make a branch profitable. It is a mindset of Indian people that you need a nod. So if, for example, even if I'm buying a shirt and I know that this is the shirt I like, I would ask my friend or my wife or somebody or even the salesperson, "Arey, ye acha hai, ye acha hai." So that one nod from a physical person is required. And to address that mindset, we can have virtual branches by use of technology. So as Dr. Abhyankar mentioned, almost everything is possible through use of technology. RBI has allowed video KYC also. Now there is a technology available where you are able to assist a customer to fill an online application where simultaneously you will be able to see what he is putting in and you will be able to help him. So like sitting across a physical desk, as you help a customer fill out a form, you will be able to do so online as well. So in my view, to make the branch profitable, we need to have the virtual teller or the virtual banker concept introduced into the branches, and we can still ensure that you may not have the physical infrastructure, but you can give the branch experience to your customers by leveraging technology.
So let me ask the final question, and all three of you all can say, give a final summary. You could look at what is it that that makes cooperative banks the most vital. It's a backbone of the Indian economy. How important it is that we develop this cooperative sector to meet our $2 trillion economy thought. So, who would like to go? Colonel? How, Vinod Shah? How important is how important the cooperative banks are, and what should be for the economy?
See, first and foremost, I mean, everybody says, it's India and Bharat. So 70%, if I may say so, resides in the villages and the rural areas. And that's where if all of us have been saying that the cooperative banks have a strong grassroots level hold on this. It is not just a question of banking, it's a question of man on man, one-to-one basis. And that is the basis on which the whole cooperative sector and cooperative banking is based upon. It's a different issue that now the private sector and other banks, they are already spreading their wings in the rural areas. But still, today, cooperative banks, urban as well as rural cooperative banks, they still hold the majority on the rural population. So that is the grassroots level. And we all know that if this grassroots level hold which we have today, if we can strengthen it further by various means, by technology, by having more interaction, by use of digital means, by spreading awareness, all these things, I think that is where our strength lies. I don't believe in saying that, okay, a rabbit needs to be a rabbit needs to try so much hard that he competes with a tortoise for swimming. Rabbit needs to have his strength that is in running, and tortoise is supposed to swim. So let that individual two things have their own strength and exploit their strength rather than talking about, okay, let me become an average swimmer. So let cooperative banks, they know these are our strengths, and let us do that, strengthen this. Governance is one part which is our weaker area, and that's if we once start doing that, I'm sure the other things will take care of it. This is my view.
Thank you, Doctor. Sir, your thoughts?
Actually, I personally feel that there should be more hand-holding in urban cooperative banking sector. Actually, we are not each one's opposition. So actually, we should go together. Actually, if my bank want to finance this much only, because the new restriction which Mr. Ponkshe has mentioned, 25 crore maximum limit, this and that actually coming in within next 2 years actually. So the need of the individual borrower should be satisfied by 2 or 3 banks together actually. So the hand holding between the urban cooperative bank is very, very important. And in that way, personally, I feel the district association, state association, or the national association can play a very good role actually in the hand holding of the urban cooperative banking sector. Single bank cannot march forward, but together we can definitely do and spread our wings more. That is my opinion.
See, today the CMA norms, CMA norms are major restriction to the cooperative banks. I know about the rural, I don't know about the urban, but there are similar laws. For rural cooperative banks, they are saying that for housing loan, you cannot give more than 30 lakhs. 30 lakhs mein jhopdi nahi aayega. Now, how can you tell a bank that you give loans of 30 lakh for a housing? That is ridiculous. And I know last so many years, this issue has been, this has been taken up at the highest level with RBI, but RBI just doesn't want to move.
Yeah.
I mean, these kind of restrictions are a major stopping, obstacles for furthering the cooperative bank's growth also. Obviously,
Okay.
once a guy wants a loan, he will go to a private bank or a PSU bank and not to a cooperative bank, though he is my customer. That is happening today.
Good point. Yeah. Mr. Ponkshe, your final thoughts?
Yeah, I think cooperative as a fabric required in the society is absolutely important. But to really get the best out of the overall system that we have, I think a lot needs to be done on various fronts. So, for example, we need to think the relevance of it. The business model has to be rethought. Now, by business model, what I mean is, if a individual bank has a limitation, like Dr. Abhyankar mentioned, the associations need to come together and fill in those gaps. If I'm, as a bank, I'm not able to afford a CISO, I should be able to leverage it out with some of the other bank that I have. Now, it's not just to these aspects. I think what we also need to look at is a business model. Now, I'll just, please do pardon me if it's a extension of your imagination, but RBI has allowed co-originations today with NBFCs. Now, what I feel is it is a time where cooperative banks start acting as loan originators, and we start looking at that is the only way we will be able to go to the last mile and we become the originators. But at the same time, we also have the the risk management and the advanced tools to sort of securitize the portfolio, to bring in those aspects. Now, for example, if you have let's look at a model, an Australian model for mortgages, wherein a institution gets a line of credit from a larger bank and they can originate up to that limit, and then it gets passed on to the other one. So the relevance of cooperatives as a structure today can still be there with co-origination model. If we have a standardized credit policy across the banks, if we have a standard products, for example, if we have a loyalty, if we have a credit card, if we have a debit card, which is there co-branded. जैसे वो छोटी मछली, if all those small fishes come together, they can become a big fish. So if these models are thought of, wherein you are able to leverage with each other on the technology front, on the credit underwriting, credit policy front, on the marketing front, on the product design and development front, then I think it's a long way to go, and we should not shy from learning from what others have done. For example, I'm proud to say that Dr. Abhyankar and the board had given me a free hand where I could learn a lot of things from a very small bank called Mandeshi. We didn't know what exactly what microfinance is, whereas Mandeshi was doing that very well. So in fact, we partnered with Mandeshi and we had a skill development for the people in Cosmos to learn what microfinance and what micro lending is. And Mandeshi Bank, a very, very small bank, very insignificant compared to Cosmos, but we didn't deter and we didn't shy away from partnering with that bank and learning from them what microfinance is, and we then were able to implement that back in Cosmos. So I think that cooperativeness and that relevance and reigniting that fabric of cooperation, if Fidor Bank can take this model and be successful today, I see no reason why cooperatives can come back and gain their lost glory.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to wind up today's show. It has been a wonderful panel discussion. On the cooperatives, the coming days post-COVID seem to be challenging to many small cooperative banks. The government intend to convert PSBs into private banks, introduction of aggressive technologies, fintechs taking over many of the functions that banks held, and RBI stepping in to ensure governance. Cooperatives have to transform and gear up for the new challenges in the days to come. With these thoughts, please join me in thanking our panel members who have thrown a lot of excellent ideas, excellent thoughts into this. So please, Dr. Mukund Abhyankar, Ms. Smita Sandhane, unfortunately, we could not, network had a problem, so we could not discuss much with her, but she was there in the earlier part. Colonel Vinod Shah and Mr. Vikrant Ponkshe, thank you very much for coming, spending time with us, educating our audience. And thank you very much. I look forward to meeting you all at some other forum. Ladies and gentlemen, before I finally close, let me tell you, on Friday, first time on Business and Banking Dialogue, we are having a UK special session where top respective personalities from UK are joining our panel. We will show on the flashcard right now. We can see on the flashcards. We are showing that to you. Please join our UK special episode on Friday and share your questions, if any. Thank you. So look forward to meeting you on Friday and have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.